It'll only take about half an hour. An hour at the most. Okay, she said, drawing the word out in bewilderment. Well, do you want the job, Annie? He asked. Oh, yeah, of course I do. I was just surprised, that's all. She struggled over her words. Good, he said. I was starting to think maybe you didn't feel up to it. 2:30? She asked, trying to infuse her words with more confidence. 2:30, he said, and hung up. Annie couldn't help but think the entire call had been strange. Once Shaker made his mind up on something, he wasn't known for ever going back on it. Then again, he'd never actually said that he didn't want her to go one way or another. That was just the word around the office. Annie put it out of her mind, deciding not to question her second chance. The conversation had killed at least 3 minutes, and now there was a much more pressing issue at hand. She walked back to the bathroom and picked up the test with her eyes closed. Please, God. Please, God. Please, God. She opened her eyes and looked at the tiny display. Negative. It was always negative. It was the barbecue chicken after all. Damn. Again her thoughts went back to Henry. Maybe he was shooting blanks. How could she convince him to see a doctor? How could she even bring it up without hurting his feelings? Men were just so full of pride. Henry was a good man, but he was no different. Something like this would make him feel emasculated and responsible for her own sadness. Plus, if she did use a sperm donor, he might feel like it wasn't really his child. Maybe she could just bring up the topic of adoption. At least then the child would be neither of theirs biologically, so he wouldn't grow to resent her. It put them back on equal footing. They never talked about adoption before. She herself had no problem with it. She'd spent a good deal of her own childhood in and out of various foster homes after her parents had died. It may actually be very rewarding. There were, after all, a lot of children who needed homes. She sighed. She so badly wanted a child of her own, to feel it grow inside her, to experience that mystical connection that only mother and child are said to share. She flopped down on the couch and glanced at the clock. It was 11:30. That gave her more than 2 hours to get dressed and take a shower. She didn't really feel like going into the office on her day off, but if she could make this Kettle Creek thing work out for her, she might be able to pull her ass out of the fire at work. And that was at least something. She decided to go all out. Her best clothes, do her makeup, and if there was time, even curl her hair. She wasn't going to fuck up this time. The Chester Public Safety Office was no different from any other bureaucratic office. Nondescript and incredibly uncomfortable furniture. Bland commercial carpeting, accompanied by the incessant ticking of analog clocks and the smell of burnt coffee and computer paper. That particular color of off-white paint that all office walls seemed to share. She arrived before anyone else, wearing her freshly pressed black silk shirt and skirt set that trailed just below the knee. Her shoulder-length curls bouncing around her shoulders. She felt pretty. She felt confident. Kind of. She pushed open the door to the conference room, which was dominated by a large circular table, the edges of which were chipped, the pseudo-wood having seen better days, much like everything else in the office. Off to the side, and to the left of the door, was a smaller fold-out table, with fresh coffee in a pump, and an open box of donuts of questionable age. Mr. Shaker entered directly behind her, giving her a bit of a start. "Hey, Annie," he greeted her. "I hope you don't mind, but I asked everyone else to come a bit later because I wanted a chance to talk to you alone first." Her heart jumped into her throat. "Okay," she managed. Shaker wasn't a big man, but he had a presence about him. Something that demanded respect, or at least the guise of respect. He was middle-aged, losing his fight against the Battle of the Bulge. His hair and thin mustache had gone winter gray. "Coffee? Donuts?" he offered. "No, I'm all right." "Okay, well, have a seat." He seated himself on the opposite side of the table. "I'm gonna be honest with you, Annie. I wasn't gonna send you on this one. The only reason I am is because of the foreman at Kettle Creek High, Chase Lawrence." She stiffened. There it was. It all made sense now. He asked for you by name, Shaker continued, and since you've been the one in contact with him on this since the beginning, I felt that it would look somewhat unprofessional for you not to be on the team. But I don't want you to feel uncomfortable either, because of the paperwork or calculations. I'll be leaving those in Steve and Tabby's more than capable hands. Think of this more as a relearning experience. She knew that this was his way of trying to be kind, but still, the man had a way of making you feel inadequate. So what is it that you want me to do? She asked timidly, feeling her confidence slipping away. Just observe, really. Watch what Steve and the others do, especially Steve. He's been with us a long time, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Others? She asked. Yeah, I'm sending 4 other people with you on this. It's a big job, and I think we may get some bad snow this week, so I wanted to cover all my bases, get everyone in and out as fast as possible. I thought we were only supposed to get flurries. He actually smiled. Yeah, that's what the official forecast says, but I don't listen to them. I listen to my wife. She says that she can tell if it's going to rain or snow just by looking at the moon, the smells in the air, and the feel in her joints. It sounds crazy, but after 30 years of marriage, I've learned to trust her instincts. She's never wrong. There was a knock on the door. Come in, Mr. Shaker called. It was Steve. He'd lost the lumberjack outfit and shaved off the beard, but he still looked like a member of the living dead. His eyes were sunken in the grimace of a man obviously in the grips of a hangover. Shaker pretended not to notice, and as long as Steve did good work, he would continue to pretend. Steve made a beeline for the refreshment table and poured himself a cup of black coffee before sitting down. Morning, boss. Afternoon? Afternoon, Steve, Shaker said. You know Annie? Yeah. Steve answered the statement as if it had been a question. Hi, Annie, he croaked. We're just waiting for a few more people, Mr. Shaker said. Steve coughed into a cupped hand and then threw back a large gulp of the black coffee. A couple silent moments later, the door opened again. This time, Anton and Rob entered, talking and laughing loudly about an Asian girl Rob had slept with. Tabby walked in directly behind them, spotting Annie immediately and mouthing something that looked like the word dick before motioning with her eyes at Rob's back. Rob and Anton went for the donuts, grabbing a handful apiece and sitting together opposite Annie, while Tabby poured herself a cup of coffee, adding copious amounts of cream and sugar, finally coming and sitting herself next to Annie without even a word. The others exchanged pleasantries, and then Mr. Shaker cleared his throat. Now, I'm sure you all know, this coming week we're going to be doing the final inspection in the rebuilt Kettle Creek High School. If there's any doubt, you 5 are the ones going along. No one seemed surprised, though Anton did cast a curious glance at Annie. She felt herself shrinking into her chair. Do you really need 5 people to go on this thing? Tabby complained, scowling. Yes, I do. I want to get this thing done as quickly as possible, and having 5 people on the job will give me peace of mind. We're already going to be going in late. The workers aren't going to be off the site until well into the afternoon. There was a chorus of groans. Hey, don't complain to me, Mr. Shaker said. I don't write their schedules. If you want to bitch at someone, take it up with the construction crew. They knew we had the inspections penciled in for Thursday. They're cutting it really close. It's going to be really nasty out Thursday night as it is, and it's a liability to the company to have you all out on site so late. Does anyone know exactly how to get to this place? Rob asked. I do, Steve said, and my SUV has a GPS, so you can all ride with me to make it easier to save on gas. Plus it handles better in the snow than that POS Mustang you drive, Rob. Rob stuck his tongue out. Well, the state wants us to be particularly careful with this inspection, Mr. Shaker continued. You all know that the original school was actually destroyed by a fire in the first place back in the 60s. 67, Anton offered. Well, the new structure is almost identical to the old one, and it's built directly on the foundation of the original. No one is exactly sure what started the fire. At that, Rob fake coughed something that sounded like Columbine, but Shaker ignored him. We need to be very thorough. And that means cutting no corners, people. I want it done fast, but I want it done right.